What's up, guys? I'm SaltEMike, and this is your Star Citizen Week in Review for December 11th, 2023. 322 is trucking along and looks to go live this week, and they really address the issues around salvage on Inside Star Citizen, and the Arrastra question and answer thread is finally here. All that and more on today's Week in Review. And as always, if this is your first week in review, this is where I take all of the official Star Citizen news each week, put it into one video, and share some of my opinions about it. I also live stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/SaltEMike, every day but Monday, starting at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, and you guys have still been coming out and saying great things. Thank you for stopping by from YouTube over to Twitch. It's been great. Another note, we talked about it last week, and you came out subscribing in droves. Answer the Call podcast, going to its own channel, linked in the top of the description. Get subscribed so you don't miss the first podcast of the year starting in 2024. Also expect a bunch of videos to get posted throughout the week this week. Now we have a lot to get through, so let's start out with the 5 patches that we got this week. And starting out with Monday, settlements are officially in. There are way more than I anticipated. 15 new ones in Stanton. And when you put that together with what they worked on in Pyro, that's a lot of work and pretty cool. In Stanton, they're only on Microtech and Hurston, filling out more of our major planets with, I guess, a lot of open area is a really good thing. All NPCs at the location are neutral, and you'll find Duster's clothing here, not armor. So be careful wearing this outside in space. Doesn't work. I even found that some of them have salvage, commodity stations that you can buy RMC at a really profitable price, which is awesome. There's new openable containers, and they're off the not ready for feedback list now, and offer between 1 and 8 SCU containers that you can buy at cargo decks. They're really pricey, and they lock to the cargo grid, which is awesome, but I don't know much more than that. Basically, that's all they are. The 1 and 2 SCU containers, but you also get 4 and 8, and you can just put stuff in them, but they don't really do much else, and you can't take things out of them like ship components, so they aren't really that useful yet, but they're working towards it. There was a structural salvage update where they kind of did what they said they would do about making things more interesting. They made a sweet spot. Basically, you can scoop really fast or slow based on how close you are to the sweet spot. Again, mimicking a lot of the mining mechanics that we have here. But the big update was taking the Vulture down to 12 SCU in its buffer and the Reclaimer all the way down to 140. Both changes are making the ships way more viable. The viability of as a multi-crew ship a lot with the Reclaimer. I had a ton of fun with this, but there's one issue. They're using the damage states of all the ships. So the large ships break into really large pieces that are larger than 140 SU, so you're always losing out on material. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but what this did not fix was the co-pilot seat is still super boring and super easy, right? Tuesday, we had another salvage update where they upped the Vulture's SCU buffer to 13 because you can have a box in front of the filler station, so that was a good change. And they upped the Reclaimer 100 SCU to fit the combo of RMC, construction materials, as well as some of the larger ships, basically, to 240 SCU. Weapons. This is kind of old news. The FS9 has been 75 rounds in its barrel the entire PTU, and they're just announcing it now. Very weird. Wednesday, they started to slow down a little bit, and they're doing smaller things like adjusting tractor beam for the Reclaimer and Vulture to move ship pieces around. They also handle some things for hover bikes. And again, the R97 has 18 rounds the entire PTU cycle, and they're just sharing it now. And oh yeah, it's the worst gun in the game. Thursday, they updated the Microtech Jumptown location to have more trees. I actually haven't seen this location yet, but I heard it's super awesome and really hard to land at. So, like, people in FPS dodging between trees and stuff should be really fun. I can't wait to try that in live. Derelict settlements now have that trade run has gotten even more overpowered because they changed the prices of RMC and construction materials. More on that later. I think we'll talk about that during ISC. And their shop sells tractor beams and attachments, things like that. This is really cool. They added the A1 Cutter Scout, all the Furies, and the Hull C to the in-game shops for in-game money. You can buy them in-game now. And it seems like you can't spawn Gravlev vehicles at stations anymore, only ground locations. So they're treated like ground vehicles. They reduced the LH-86 damage. Its DPS was insane. Even still, it's crazy. NPCs have them in, I think, Microtech bunkers. The guards have them, and they slap. Friday's patch, they added almost, I think, all settlements. Actually, no. On Answer the Call this week, I think it was either Red Monster or Croncy told me that it was just a few. I think 3 or 4 now have quantum markers on the star map, not all of them. Now, with that, I don't normally do this, but there is a known issue worth noting. Ships are super expensive now. Small ships can be up to 4 million, and the 890 jump is like 100 million. PU producer Phil was in my chat and gave a little bit more context on Saturday morning to let us know these will not be in 322, and it's a result of the economy team thinking where some prices might end up being. And I think some people will say this is to sell more ships with real money, and that could be true. But it is way more likely to be falling in line with how fast money is made in the game currently, and addressing that and having proper gold sinks for people. And yeah, if you start out with an Aurora, you're not going to be making money that quickly unless you know the game, right? So you would know to like maybe rent a prospect or mine a bit, and you can make a few million quite quickly and move into a larger ship. But a lot of people don't know that stuff. They also did a patch watch this week, and we'll have another one next week to address most of the changes that we discussed today, I think. So check them out, and that's linked in the description. And yeah, there's nothing new we haven't talked about really. So it's more for people that aren't following things regularly to get everything in a post. Now, with that said, there was no monthly report, no roadmap update, nothing else like that. So we're going to move into video updates. And with that, we only had an ISC called Salvage Operation, and they started out the show explaining exactly why we have such a basic mechanic now in 322.
We had to reconsider our approach quite a lot because it was apparent from the prototype that several aspects of it weren't really going to work the way we wanted to.
With the demo failing, or basically showing us the limits of our engine, which was the entity count, by showcasing that it takes a really long time to spawn all the entities that would fit the size of an 890 jump.
We also had to reconsider some things because we wanted to get this in players' hands as soon as possible. So that means making a few adjustments to the scope.
We were asked to come up with a solution by end of this year, which is structural salvage.
Now, this makes it very apparent that this wasn't their decision, as in the devs' decision, to have this feature out in this state. It was the need to have something in the patch that caused this. And as we talk more about it in this episode, the more comfortable I am with them making this decision, to be perfectly honest with you. Many in the community called out that RMC was not worth collecting when the gameplay first dropped, and they addressed that here.
We want to encourage you to use the hull scraping first, so you don't lose the RMC in the process.
Which is higher value per SEU than construction materials.
So they raised the price of RMC to 14.3K at lawful locations, just under 10K at the no questions asked terminals, and they lowered the price of construction materials to around 6,000 SEU. Now, I thought this would be enough, considering, that's such a vast difference in price. But when you take into the account that it could take an hour plus to hull scrape a large ship and 30 seconds to structurally salvage it, there's a real disconnect in the economics of this situation, right? It is significantly more efficient to just structurally salvage. That's it. That's all you would want to do. So I don't know what it's going to take. I've always been of the opinion of it's going to take crafting. So there's no point in stressing out about this too much now. It's going to take crafting and you wanting RMC or you wanting structural salvage components in order to decide whether or not you're going to take them, right? Now, in case you've been living under a rock, they changed the way RMC is stored.
The internal storage is one of the great additions we've made here.
What that is basically temporary storage between you gathering the material and you putting the material into cargo boxes.
You have more space inside of your ship, so when you now go back to the filler stations, instead of the material just being stored in the filler station, you now draw from this pool of internal storage.
That is slightly bigger than the actual cargo capacity of the Vulture and the Reclaimer, so you can basically fill up your ship first. While it is still filling, while it is partly full, or when it is full, you have someone else or yourself go down to the filler station and basically convert everything or all the resources that you have inside the internal storage into the cargo boxes. The boxes come out automatically, so they deplete the internal storage and you will be able to move those boxes around on the cargo grid.
So that was a longish clip, but anyone who is kind of seeing this for the first time, I want them to know exactly how this works. And this mechanic is, I think it literally saved the Vulture. So it's by far the best addition to salvage gameplay. The more we can talk about this and this decision, the better, in my opinion. Now, the Reclaimer is really the biggest point of contention with the update, and they discussed the claw. And it's not looking good, guys.
Now we have the gameplay defined and redesign or revisualize the claw.
We didn't want to just kind of start from scratch. We wanted to take the essence of the original, but rework it to a way that now made sense with how the actual feature works as a whole.
The claw changes sound very permanent when it comes to the visuals and the function of the claw. And they discussed that with us a bit more here.
You will no doubt have noticed that we're no longer calling this feature munching, and that's because we just didn't have the bandwidth to support an actual physical munching action of the claw.
On the original, it was like a claw that would rip things apart. Now the feature isn't working like that.
So now it acts as the field emitter for the resonance and disintegration field. We're still very interested in enhancing the destruction side of structural salvage, more similar to what was originally conceptualized with munching, but we're going to have to wait for Maelstrom to be more fully realized before we can start experimenting with that.
So this is what it is for now. It might stay this way forever, but at least they're dedicated to at least trying to bring it closer to its original pitch, and I'm cool with that. Again, we talked about this last week. If they just got ahead of this, I don't think there would have been any issues. Next, they shared something that I actually had no clue about.
One of the distinctions with the Reclaimer, though, is that it can break apart basically any size target, whereas the Vulture is limited to only up to a certain size of ship.
So currently, anything above, I think it's the Star Runner, can't be fractured by the Vulture, which is something you would need the Reclaimer to fracture.
I had no idea that the Reclaimer could break larger ships and the Vulture couldn't. This seemed to make the Vulture even less desirable, but I assume these guys will find a solution that there's situations that the Vulture will make sense in and not a Reclaimer, and vice versa. So that was ISC this week. We did not have a Star Citizen live. I think Jared was doing Bar Citizens again or something. I don't know. They just never have shows anymore. So who knows? Let's move on to other updates. And as always, we'll start out with a sneak peek. They showed us the Santokii, some more, just the exterior. We still don't have it in game at the moment, and this is expected in a 3.22 patch, hopefully this week. I have no idea. And then we move on to the Arrastra question and answer. This was something I was really anticipated, especially how much they seem like they were on top of things at CitizenCon. You would have thought, they would be maybe on top of this feature and this ship post-CitizenCon. And they start out with the refinery on the Arrastra and how it differs from other ships. It has 2 large reactors, which were said to be much larger than the 6 on the Expanse, but then they say each of the 2 can hold the sum of the Expanse. So the ship is 2 Expanses. Cool. What we don't know is the difference between running a large number of small refinery jobs and 1 or 2 large ones. It's just going to come down to gameplay there, and they're not willing to tell us anything about it. Then they give us a little bit more insight on the difference between the Expanse and the Arrastra. The ship can take 2 bags in, but the Expanse can only take in 1 in its back, but it can hold 8. the Q&A is creating more questions than it's giving answers at this point. They did one thing. They did answer one thing, I should say. The external containers on this ship will use SCU containers, while every other mining ship and the Expanse is still using bags. So, again, what's going on here? There's big disconnects. Everything about mining sounds different when it comes to this ship. It's probably not coming out for years. I don't know what's going on, but this didn't leave me at ease with the ship sale of the Arrastra. It's just, it looks like they wanted to sell a picture and go the easy route, and I get it. I'm not investing too much time or energy into the Arrastra. I just really hope it doesn't kind of break the mold of mining that they've created that I really enjoy. So we did get a sub-Flair update as well. They're offering these little plants for our hangars and apartments at some point. $10 subs get the orange one, $20 subs get the pink one, and you could buy the surprised one on the sub store. And then the ship of the month is the Scorpius. And now this is a great time to explain that they made some changes to the subscriber program, but they're only boosting $20 subs and giving 2 ships to them. So the Scorpius and the Antares. And I don't know where I saw it, but apparently $20 subs are getting a 20% discount off every 6 months, while $10 subs get 10% off, but only once a year. There was also a post called Testing Champions, and they're a bit late on this one. It goes all the way back to 319. So if you don't know what this is, they basically give rewards for the best testers and other funny situations that happen on the PTU, which is awesome. So guys, that'll leave it for this week. Bit of a slow week, but also not. They've put out 5 patches, Q&As, a really good ISC that was kind of very informative on a situation that people were wanting to be informed on. And they've, since CitizenCon, have been on fire. They've been putting out content, putting out patches. Every patch has something worth doing. I think yesterday or today was the first time that I was kind of like, all right, I'm a little bit bored of 322, but even then I found something to kind of test and figure out. So yeah, I hope they keep this rolling through the holidays, and I hope the patch is enjoyable once it goes live. Let me know what you guys think about anything we discussed here in the comments down below. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to the new Answer the Call podcast channel. And yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I will see you guys next week.